Uh-oh. Oh boy. Yep, I've done this so many times when I was a 20Q. One of the lessons. One of the lessons you gotta go through to get good to go.
I seem to be playing worse the more I play.
It just
I'm
seems that way because you're playing people that are like 5 or 6 ranks stronger than you. So you have to learn, like, if we say like 10 small things per rank, they know 50 things more than you. So you have to learn like 5 things and they'll still be beating you by a lot. So don't stress too much. My first game of Go, I died with every stone on the board. Literally every stone on the board died. And I was like, how do I score the game? And they're like, you lost. It's like, but how much? Everything. They weren't very nice to me, but yeah, it's one of the phases we have to go through. Okay.
thank-
If you're on your opponent's side, I recommend playing on the third line. It's easier to settle. If you are on the fourth line like this, also remember that fourth line is for developing, third line is for settling. You can't develop in your opponent's land. You need to settle it and reduce it and stop it from developing. But you can't really develop there. That's optimistic. So when you're playing on the fourth line like this, you can be considered floating because you have no foundation. White is coming under you. So if you have no foundation, that means when white eventually pincers you, attacks you from both sides, these are floating with no eyes. So are you going to waste an entire move to get the eye? And white will get some local profit? Or are you going to run away where I will still get some local profit? So yeah, it's just annoying to have a floating group. It's not like it's impossible, but it's very annoying. Okay, this is a big move. It's perfectly fine. Oh, one space jumps are usually your friend. 3 space from one stone is too far. So you want to go 2 space. And that is because in a desperate situation, we can connect. Right? If we're super desperate, we can connect. But in a 3 space, it's actually not possible to fully connect.
Hmm.
So one stone, we say one stone jumps 2 to make a base. 2 stones, we say jumps 3 to make a base.
Hmm.
And the difference is that number 1 stone. So 1 stone jumps 2, 2 stones jumps 3. And it jumps over 2, jumps over 3. Good rule of thumb, if your opponent ever plays a 3 space jump, throw a stone in and then leave it alone. Because a lot of the time, you might not know how to deal with the follow-ups with black, and that's fine. Technically, it's white's problem, not black's problem. So a lot of the times, just throwing the stone in, creating that headache, and then doing nothing is the best answer because your opponent will start freaking out and play another move, and then you'll get another move, right? And then sometimes they'll leave a chicken out a second time, and you'll get another move. So a lot of the times, that one stone will give you 2 or 3 stones elsewhere.
Is
So,
that what called Agi?
yes, Aji is potential weakness. So what this is you're leaving the potential to activate the stone. And so white will a lot of the times get scared and kill the Aji, and you get a free move for it, which already is profitable because you got something and they just killed Aji.
Hmm.
So it's a good stone to sacrifice. It's like one of your first sacrifice plays you'll learn. It's true you could activate the stone at the right timing, but I think it's better just to leave it and get 2 big moves because that's already enough value and it's really easy to play. But this is,
I'm I'm white in this case.
yeah, I'm reviewing for both sides though.
Great, great.
So here's another one. Boop, throw a stone in.
Okay.
Just see what happens, and then boop, throw a stone in, see what happens, and then let's play some big moves.
So the
Uh,
immediate reaction if the stone is thrown in is to play on top?
Top or bottom. Surrounding is typically better, but a lot of players will play on the bottom.
Okay.
If you need to desperately connect, the bottom's going to give you more chances. But typically in Go, surrounding things is usually the answer. It's usually just better.
Mhm.
Okay, so here you actually want to go fourth line. This is because you have a third line and a third line. So you can
Hmm.
actually develop in between. So third line goes up to the fourth line goes down to the third line to settle. So you develop and then settle. So in this case, that would be the shape here. Okay. And now white can do it. Maybe third line. Fourth line's fine. Just do it and then leave. And just see if you can get another move out of them. See if you can get another move out of them. You'd be surprised how many times people will get scared of that move. With that being said, avoid for black, you want to avoid a 2-space into a 2-space. If you have a 2-space jump, you want a 1-space jump the next jump. If you have a 2-space into a 2-space, this actually opens up the option for cutting points to sacrifice a stone. So the crosscut, this is one of the first use cases you might find for the crosscut. Crosscuts are very reading intensive because there's so many ways for it to go. However, a crosscut is a way to cut a 2-space into to another 2-space. This is a way to cut, because if you go here, then I might cut you here or go here. If you go here, I can potentially cut you here. If you go here, I might just cut you here and cut off this side. So it's very, very, very cuttable. It's a lot of weakness. So 2-space into 1-space. Don't 2-space into 2-space. You're on your opponent's side of the board, so just like with black, you want to be on the third line. And I recommend approaching a fourth line stone, because if you do that, when they take your base, you jump, you have a slide. This slide will give you like half an eye, and you can still run away. So your shape's actually not that bad. But if you go in the center, black gets to dictate which direction you run, and you don't really have a slide anymore. With that being said, I think I would decide is if I go here, black develops that, right? And if I go here, black will develop that side. So which wall for black, if we draw a wall for black right here, which side looks scarier? I want to say this one, because this one has a stone out versus these, there's a white stone out. So probably I want to destroy this one. In that case, I will approach this way, and when they pincer, I just jump and run away. And that's a good way to decide in between. If you have enough space to make a 2-space jump on both sides, then it's okay. But in play the center. But this one is an armpit hit. So if this is a person and the center is the sky, this is their shoulder, the shoulder of the stone, and this is the armpit. And armpits stink. So because it's such a stinky move, we don't do it. We would rather play a 1-space jump. But as we know, 1 can jump 2, so this is not super efficient. So that is why it's not the most ideal move. If you do a armpit hit, then they can play the double Hane tactic, or double Hane Tsuji. And this squeezes the lifelines, the liberties, out of these 2 stones, because there's so many stones touching it, and that is why the move stinks. Versus if you go here and they block, now they can't do this because now you just walk through them. Right, so now they can't play the double Hane tactic. Okay, jump is fine. You could kick and then try to make an eye and then look at jumps. That's also possible. But I think just saving your stone is perfectly fine. Black, I think for you, learn the capping move. This is when I have strength on both sides, I have a base on both sides, then just cap. And just try to seal white in. Like whichever direction white goes, just surround them. And that's the way to attack. And then this will give you influence on the rest of the board, and white will have 0 points of value. So the way to attack a dragon is to surround it. Fourth line is for developing. This says you want to develop this area, but there's white stones here, so you can't really develop. So you need to attack. Otherwise, you're wasting a fourth line move. 2-space jump, just do 1-space jumps. The 1-space jumps are your friend. 2-space jumps have a lot of cutting Aji. I think Flag did it because you did it. Jumping everywhere. Jumping everywhere is not going to be a good shape game.
Part of the challenge is misreading or knowing when to apply principles. So, for instance, landing in the center is a principle, right? But then what you're saying now is that's for the third line, not the fourth line, right? So that's one that I just learned. And then this
landing in the
like,
center to make a base. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, to make a base, right?
Yes.
But in the opening,
right?
And so you do that on the third line. But
yes,
from what you're saying just now, you wouldn't do that on the fourth line. So that's the first. And
Right.
then also the idea of just sort of like moving fast, making covering ground.
Uh-huh.
Again, it kind of leads to two space jumps sometimes when you really should do a one space jump.
Two
Just
space
because you.
jumps are
Mhm,
typically bad unless you really, really need speed. So you
mhm,
need to escape very quickly. This is known
mhm,
as sabaki. When you need to escape from an area very quickly, you can play light and loose and don't try to save every stone, but rather save like some of it and destroy some of it. And that's fine, but it's more of an emergency tactic. And the judgment of when to use it is very difficult. So usually you don't even worry about it until like 5Q plus.
okay.
So the two space jump for a base is fine because it works with the edge to stay connected. But a two space jump in the center has a lot of odds to get cut. So that's
Okay.
typically not a good strategy.
Mhm,
So what I teach my students is known as the Clossy approach. The way I teach them is I tell them to work with the corners first and then to spread out by playing approaches or extensions and sometimes enclosures. But the idea is you're playing an extension, a 4 or 5 space jump, because you're going to build a framework. And then beyond that, you're going to build that framework up as much as you can, right? And then if they block it, you just keep building and then building, and they have eventually have to come in, right? They eventually have to deal with this. So
mhm,
eventually, whenever they come in, maybe you try to build something and uh, they come in. What you're going to do now is try to force it to live. You want them to come in, and while they're trying to make life, you're going to start cashing out your points. See how you get the
mhm,
corner, right? And they run
mhm,
away, and now you can build another framework. So not only did you just get points for this framework, you actually got another framework and more points. And so they have to come in. And so now you're going to convert that to territory, right? Just whatever, let them live, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? And now you've got cash.
mhm,
And then you can go stop their framework, right? And so that's kind of what you do is in the opening, you want to spread out. Um, and then when you're next to the enemy, you want a base, you want to settle.
okay.
So you don't really worry about a base until the enemy is near you. When they're near you, you need to settle, you need a base, you need foundation. And then
Okay.
what you're doing is you're building up a large position so you can attack something, or you can use that as support to destroy their framework if their framework's too big, which usually white is destroying black's framework. And then the way frameworks work is the idea is it wants to attack and surround something to make cash and sente, which you want to think of Go as a income versus debt game. You don't want money, you want profit. You don't want $1,000 and then $1,000 of debt. You want like $100 and no debt, right? You want a perfect positive balance. So if your opponent is the debt, you want to force a positive exchange rate out of it. Well, by building up a large position, the debt comes along and you'll just squash it and cash out locally and you'll make
Mm,
profit, right? So you're not really making a bunch of cash immediately, but you're setting up places to make profit in the long term or to squeeze out the debt and cash out whenever this activates, when this situation activates. So you can think of it as money, profit, and debt. But the big idea is you don't really want territory, you want profit, which is sente territory or territory while forcing the opponent to respond. But if you get territory and they get territory, it doesn't really matter, right? It doesn't affect the difference in score because it's not the first one to 100 points, it's having more than them. So all you're worried about is not the points, but the difference in points. That is the score. And you affect that most positively by attacking and surrounding things.
mhm,
Okay. So this is a diagonal one space jump. Diagonal one space jump can be cut. So immediately I want to cut this. So you want to run with one space jumps. If you need to run this way, there are a couple shapes to do so. Diagonal runs that way and it's still connected because it has two ways to connect. A one space jump can change direction by playing a knight's move in the center of the one space. So a knight's move by itself has a cutting point. But a knight's move from a one space is known as the dog's face. And this is because it looks like a little dog, or the triangle jump. So it's not considered a knight's move because it is connected. Knight's moves are cuttable and the dog's face is not. So if you need to change direction from the one space jump, you can play the dog's face or a diagonal. That is the way to move without getting cut. And this is one of the things you really have to master at the double digit queue is how to run away without getting cut. But also not playing one move at a time, not just going one move and then one move and then one move. It's connected. It doesn't get more connected than that, but it's also the slowest. You need to try to move 2 lines at a time without getting cut. That is the way to learn how to run away. So if black just goes here, now your stone did not help your friends. So now you're in a lot of trouble. Okay, invasion is fine if the outside is strong, but because it's a 3 space, it's not quite. So black should cut it off and counterattack. We'll see what black does. Okay. Expanding eye space is good. Go ahead and get this move in, it's free. And expand the eye space and make it as big as possible. Yep, just like that. Yep, and you're alive. Okay. This is life and death problems. So if you find yourself dying on the side with the surrounded group, that is life and death problems. Okay, so this one is 9x9. Means you lack 9x9 experience because this just doesn't work. Yep, so second line cuts, you want to master those on the small boards because small boards get very, very quick practice and it's near the edge because it's a smaller board. So if you need to master second line cuts or third line cuts, just the first, second, and third line and nothing else, small boards are your friend. Endgame is 13x13 is also really good for practicing your endgame because it's endgame very quickly, so you'll get a lot of rapid practice, and there's a lot of second line and first line moves. And there's a lot to learn in the endgame. So if you ever just want to focus on that specifically, you could maybe do that for a week or something. Just play 13x13 for a week and just focus on counting the difference in the endgame, making sure you get to it first, making sure your moves are sente, yada, yada, yada. So right now, I would definitely be trying to connect to my friends because you do not have a base. Black stones are all around you. So let's get to our friends that do have the space to make a base. Okay, so I think at this point it's probably game over, and I'm also out of time, so I'll go ahead and stop here. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that and found it helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you.